How about that? The Dallas Cowboys, the Brooklyn Nets of the NFL. Incredibly said. Head to Cleveland now, where Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski had this to say about his quarterback, Baker Mayfield. He said, quote, would hope he's much more comfortable in year 2 of this offense. Hey, Brandon, your expectations for our guy Baker this season are blank. Our guy.
Yeah, I'm going to go with GMOY, Game Manager of the Year. Why? Why am I saying that? You know, your first year, I mean, college Heisman, you won the Heisman, you come in, you know, you're Baker Mayfield, you got this big chip on your shoulder. You have a really good first year, rookie campaign, really good. Cleveland, ecstatic. Then your second year, your sophomore year, sophomore slump, like a lot of guys. Now everybody's talking about you threw a lot of picks. What happened? Then your third year, you come back and you light it up. I mean, all year, Nick and I, we were arguing about, you know, if this guy's the real deal. Nick loves you. I didn't, because I didn't believe you could protect the ball. You did that. But when you have a guy like Baker Mayfield, who has his chip on his shoulder, is me against the world, you know, this Brett Favre mentality, he's a gunslinger. That's who he is. But when you have Odell coming back, you have Jarvis Landry, you have a top offensive line, you have a top running game, you have Clowney, now you're adding there. If they manage him right, now you got those two-headed monsters at the defensive end. Just be a manager. Don't mess it up. I don't need you to get better. I just don't need you to get worse. Just manage the situation. Kevin Stefanski, Joy, did a phenomenal job of putting together an offense that worked for him. They know exactly what he does well. So Baker, don't go into the Heisman mode. Don't go into, oh, I got to go prove that I'm a top 5 quarterback. We don't need that. We just need you to go out there and manage the game, make the right decision. So GMOY.
No, you're right. I love what Kevin Stefanski did this past year, Brandon. That's why my expectations for Baker this season are to win multiple playoff games. As you mentioned, he progressed every year from his rookie year, despite an incredibly dysfunctional situation, which he no longer has. He is the coach of the year. He has an incredible roster, as you just mentioned. So he should win multiple playoff games this year. That's what my expectation for him is. They should win the AFC North. I'm not ignoring the Ravens, but I don't love the Ravens offseason the way that I love the Browns offseason. They filled the holes they needed to fill. We haven't even gotten to the draft yet. They're coming in a very solid situation, a really nice playoff just route of the Steelers. So it's their division, and they should win multiple playoff games this year. This is probably the most talented roster that you're ever going to be able to assemble around Baker, and he's on the clock. You have to pay him very soon. So this is a proven year for Baker.
Yep. Did Nick send you his notes?
He did
Are you
not.
really talking about Baker Mayfield this way?
This is what he's got to do. What else is there? He's got to win multiple playoff games this year. It's their division. I have no faith in the Steelers, which we'll talk about in a second. I don't love the Ravens offense, and the Burrow is coming back. We don't know what the Bengals are going to be. So, yes, they should win multiple playoff games this year. They have the roster, too. They have one of the most talented rosters in the league. The Chiefs, the Buccaneers, the Browns are right up there. The expectations for the Browns should be very high. Let's not be fooled by how dysfunctional they've been over decades and decades and decades and decades and decades. This is the year that the Browns should step up.
And decades.
And decades.
I agree. I agree, Brandon. Joy is right, Brandon. I think the Browns could go undefeated at home. They've got some weak home opponents. If they steal some wins, they could go undefeated at home. My answer is big road wins. Their road schedule, a little bit rough. They go to Green Bay, to Kansas City, to New England. They could win 2 out of 3 of those games, preferably not against the Patriots, Jenna. So big road wins in Baker's future.
I like how you threw the Patriots in there. Get out of here.
Great team.
Well, you got to factor in that Ohio weather. We didn't factor in the wind of that weather like we did every single home game last year, seemingly. Let's stay in the AFC North. Head to Pittsburgh now. Mike Tomlin, fresh off that 3-year extension. Team president Art Rooney said he's got nothing but confidence in his head coach. So, Brandon, the Steelers' Super Bowl window after the Tomlin extension is blank.
I'm going to be quick here. Joy, you're from Pennsylvania. You're from right outside of Pittsburgh, right?
I'm from Pittsburgh.
I think you are.
Beaches, but I love this speech that he just gave at a football camp.
Right? I went from being the #1 draft pick to being everybody laugh at me. But guess what? I'm about that business. I'm outworking everybody at my position. I know that right here, right? But I'm doing things every single day. Commit to the dream, because that's the thing. We have to go back to being little kids about this football game, because this is a kid's game that men play. Ain't that right, Nick O'Leary? We love this game, man.
Oh, man, what's better than camp speeches? I love it. Jameis, he's a new man. This is growth. This is growth. No more eating dubs or whatever that thing was before. I love this speech from Jameis. It's great.
What did I say? I'm all in on Jameis.
I'm going to be talking about Jameis in a second, but can I first talk about eyewear for just a minute? Because for the first year and a half of the show, I'll admit I couldn't see. I basically squinted my way through the teleprompter. Finally got glasses, and I'm a seeing machine right now. I can read all the words. Next up, Oprah. Jameis Winston, who Joy just mentioned, same thing. Threw 30 interceptions. Got LASIK surgery. Sky's the limit. Next up, Hall of Fame. That brings me to Trae Young. Look at Trae. He doesn't need glasses, but he did need goggles last night to protect an eye injury. With the goggles, 25 points in a win over Orlando. Hawks have won 8 of 10. What's the moral of the story? I don't know. Not every story has a moral, but I love the goggles, and I wanted to show you how good Trae Young looked wearing them. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on. Get me off the screen. It's time to play a little drawing a blank. Got to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and their rumored plans to take Kyle Pitts with that 10th pick. Stephen Jones called the tight end a, quote, unique player. Doesn't come around every year. So, Brandon, the Cowboys drafting Kyle Pitts would be blank.
Look, Jenna, the Cowboys are sitting at 10. So if he falls, then that means this would be a steal. Everybody keep talking about this dude going down as the greatest tight end to ever play the game. They're talking about this dude being a potential Hall of Famer. Way too early. Now, we understand 100% injury rate in the National Football League, and there's a lot of adversity, so we got to slow that talk down. But that's what they're talking about with this guy. Now, I don't see him getting past, let's say the Panthers. You got the Miami Dolphins sitting out there. You have the Falcons. I don't see those 3 teams passing on a guy like this. But when you line him up with Amari Cooper, we're talking about Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb going into year 2 with Ezekiel Elliott in a bounce-back year. All this can be dangerous. Why? Because you got Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is the ideal quarterback. He's a guy. He's in rhythm. He understands how to get the ball to his guys. He understands the offense. High football IQ. You keep hearing me talk about that when we talk about the quarterback. That's where it starts. So if you have Dak Prescott leading your team with those 4 guys, this could be a very, very scary offense. And before he went down in, week 5, week 6 of last year, Joy, they were putting up 500 yards on offense. That was ridiculous.
That's why the Cowboys drafting Kyle Pitts would be get your popcorn ready. Kyle Pitts with Jerry Jones in Jerry World. I love that. Now, obviously, as you mentioned, him falling to them at 10 is pretty much an impossibility. So they'd have to trade up to get him, which would be really unprecedented for the amount of space they'd have to move up and the picks they'd have to get up for a tight end. But he's the Chase Young of this year's draft. He's the guy this year outside of Trevor Lawrence that everybody knows is going to work, that he's NFL ready. He has high expectations, as he should. So I love this. You just invested quite a bit of money in your quarterback, if I recall. We talked about his contract for what seemed like an eternity, $40 million. So why not give him a weapon? They have the offense that can use him as all the pieces that you just mentioned. You invested in your quarterback. And the Cowboys are about making headlines, not winning Super Bowls. So who cares about giving up all those picks and shoring up that defense that gave up the most points in franchise history last year? Who worries about that when you can have a, popcorn-ready offense that wows everybody and then fizzles out in the playoffs, as the Cowboys often do, which I'm here for. I'm here for the headlines and the fun. We know the Cowboys don't build that way. So I'm all in on it. Get Kyle Pitts. He's going to be a sure thing in this year's draft. And him with Dak Prescott is must-watch television.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to go with
goodness,
Brooklyn Nets-esque. Yeah, we have a terrible defense, but what if we got more offense? That's why I like Kyle Pitts on this team. Here's the other thing.
That's great.